Good morning, everyone. I hope this finds you well. After having spoken to the family of the young girl that was sexually assaulted, after speaking with them yesterday, I want to share one or two things within this message to the best of my capacity with respects to the family on certain things that I will not say here, and based on conversations that were had, to give people a little bit of a deeper understanding. I will also discuss within this message the events that happened in citywest, concerning what was to be a peaceful protest, which has turned it turned violent, and the damage that does, and it takes away the effect of trying to get change, and that things like that do damage. And very disappointed from my personal view, very disappointed, because I've always said it when it comes to protest, the government are looking for a reaction and the media are looking for a negative reaction so they can spin the narrative away and take away the accountability from the government, take away the accountability from the issue at hand and the horrific incident that happened to that innocent little child. So I will address that as well, and I don't condone those actions because it does more damage. And also, to understand something is not to accept it or justify it. You can understand why it happened and the temperaments of people, but it's not justified. And I will also discuss a little bit in this video with regards to, some of the concerns from other communities, right? Because one thing I've always said, and I'll continue to say it, the only way change is going to be achieved is unity. Division is not the path, division is not the way. And when protests turn violent, and I had conversations with a couple of members of, the African community and different communities. I'm very blessed to know different community leaders, and their concerns are justified. They said, we would love to support the Irish. We do agree with some of the things you're saying, and we agree that the Irish need support, but it's very dangerous for us to go to the protest, because when they turn violent, at any point somebody could turn on us. And that's a very, very key point, and it's important, and that has to be acknowledged, right? Because I do believe Ireland needs help. The Irish people need help, right? From everybody that lives in this country, from everybody that are working within this country, to help with the current climate of things. And the government wants people divided. That's what I believe, and the media is doing a fantastic job. But to circle back, yesterday I had a conversation, with family members of that little girl. I came to find out that it was actually, a friend of mine. It's a family member. She's a family member of a friend of mine, which was tough. And we had a conversation, conversations with a couple of family members yesterday, and it was painful. That little girl has had a tough life, an incredibly tough life. And, the state has failed her in ways you cannot possibly imagine. What Tusla has done, what the government has failed in terms of not ensuring proper security is in place within the country. And the fact that there is a high level of immigration, there's no vetting processes in place, and people that are here that have committed crimes that should no longer be here are still here for some strange reason. They're not locked up, but they're still here, as certain reports have also identified. But the little girl has had a tough life. She's been in state care, and there has been, the issue with state care and Tusla. This is not, the first time that little girl was lost out of their care or lost out of their sight. And they need to be held to a high level of accountability. The issue you find with state care within this country, and this is something that the government needs to act on and needs to change. Tusla is not only in a position where what I look at it from what I heard and the reports I read, they block families from being able to access children, where children are in a position where their own parents, are not in a position to take care of them, and they've been put in state care, but there's other family members that are willing and they're capable and loving enough to take the child in. Tusla has made it very difficult, and they've made it very difficult for this child to be with family. And there's so many different legal blockages that are in place which should not be. And the fix is very simple, and I can't understand. Well, I do understand, right? It's a lack of competency within the government. It's a lack of problem resolution. So therefore, some of these people in the government should not be in this position. If you cannot fix these issues, you shouldn't be in this position. You get paid an incredible amount of money. A high level of resources are allocated. It should be very simple. The process should be simple. If somebody is put into state care, or a child is put into state care, and they have family members or relatives that are willing to take them in, means test those relatives, make sure they can take care of the child, they have enough resources around them to take care of the child, and that child should be given back to family. It should be given to other people within their family. Once, in my opinion and my view, and I think this should be a law that should be made, once a parent gives away the child, they should have no right about where the child goes or who the child ends up being taken into when it comes to other relatives of the family. That should be looked at instantly, right? And I can't say too much about the situation with respects the highest level of respect for the family. The dangers of state care. Tusla outsources. And yesterday, after that conversation, I really, with their family members of that little girl, I had to take a bit of time to pause. Um, it's hard when you picture an innocent child coming into the world. Children come into the world not by the choice of their own, and then they experience certain things in life. But then the hoops that this little girl has had to jump through, and just the emotional pain, the damage, and that situation that happened has completely robbed her of her innocence, and that is a painful thing to fathom. And I can understand people's anger and stuff like that towards that, especially at the protest. I can understand the anger. I don't justify it, but you can understand why. Um, it's made it very difficult, incredibly difficult, and then you've a government that have failed significantly. So my thing is, Tusla outsources a lot of their care. They outsource to different companies that are not regulated, companies that are not owned by Irish people either, right? And those companies have reports, questions, serious reports for, trafficking children essentially, for the abuse of children, major reports, right? And this is not for Tusla's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, or 10th incident. There's many more that have happened. So how are we still in a position to question or even to look at, well, what went wrong with Tusla? We already know Tusla is wrong. There's enough evidence there to know that is wrong. Stop allocating funds, stop allocating resources, stop putting children into their care until they fix that system. Simple. Until the system is at a standard where it is satisfactory, because right now it is not. There's so much harm, there's so much abuse, so many children in Ireland and on a global scale that when they go into state care, there's damage, children go missing, so many things. Just a couple of weeks before, another child lost their life. And Tusla related to that situation again. So that's a big concern. With regards to the citywest riots, one thing I will say, right, and I've said it before, protests never really work because most times people protest in the wrong places, right? The decision makers are not there where you're protesting. I understand the pain, the anger. I understand that's the closest place in Tala where people can go to where the incident occurred. And, it, when you turn a protest violent, you diminish the message. And it's sad because there's a little girl whose life has completely been destroyed, and that should have been the focus. But now on the news, the focus is the riots. The focus is police were attacked, and police are only doing their job, irrespective of how people feel about the Garda. The Garda are there to do a job. They signed an oath, they swore an oath. They have to do the job, right? They have a boss and they have to do the job, unfortunately. And they have to protect, because if they weren't there, things would have gotten completely out of hand. If people had went into that iPass centre, I know for a fact with the temperament of people around the area, it would have been very catastrophic and it wouldn't have been great, right? That's not the right approach. All you're doing is creating more division. And what you're doing is, where there's other people of different ethnicity, people of different colour, different migrants that are within the country, working class migrants that don't agree with what's going on. They don't agree with the lack of resources. They don't agree with the lack of accountability from the government side to ensure safety, to ensure proper vetting, to ensure proper integration, that even though immigrants are coming into the country, it'll be immigrants that are adding value to the country, that are genuinely seeking a new life. And there's many like that. But by reacting and turning protests like that violent, one of the key things it does is people of different colour feel a fear of being there, because they're fearful that because there's violence, they could be attacked. In a peaceful protest, anybody can come, and they know if there's an issue situation, it can be verbal, whatever. But that level of violence is not acceptable, and it's diminished a lot from the message, and it's done a lot more damage than it should have done good. So, the people that have done that and the people at those protests, I understand the anger. I do. I understand the anger. But it's not justified into turning it into violence action. And the anger comes from the government not listening. I understand that the frustration comes from the government not listening. And when you don't listen to people, it pushes people to that position. But we're failing again, I think, to point the finger in the right places. The government should be held accountable for every single thing that has happened over the past 72 hours. 100%. God bless.